I think we are about ready to start. We are. Hi, John. How are you? Hope you're good. Right, let's just get started. Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Friday. Is it Friday? Friday, the 2nd of December, 2022. Amazing. Can you believe it is the second day of Advent and it's counting down to Christmas? Wow. We are recording tonight's live for the security and integrity of the message and the ability to upload and share via other platforms. If for any reason this video is taken down, for whatever reason, we will go back to TikTok into the boxes and moan about it for at least half an hour. Okay? But so far, so good. We have not had anybody complain about us on YouTube. Because it's a tiny wee audience here and I like it. It's more intimate that way. I like it. Thank you, John, and thank you, Blackfur, as well, for coming in. Thank you. So I made that intro all by myself using special royalty-free footage. I did it for TikTok, but then it got a copyright ban. Can you believe that? Mental. Absolutely mental. Yeah, let's bring up the chat box there just now. Okay, so tonight we are going to be talking again. I'm going to loosely talk about what happened last week again. I think it's important that we do talk about that. I know I forgot the blur effect. John, do you know why I forgot the blur effect? Because I didn't finish work till 9:30 tonight. Didn't get home till about 9:45. So I had an hour and 15 minutes to throw some food down my gob and find the videos that I wanted to play because I couldn't do it this morning. Didn't have time. Had to do housework. But I am as organised as I can be for a Friday night. I wonder if I could, hang on a wee second, let's see if I can do this just now. I might be able to fix that on the sly. Let's see. Let's get rid of that bit there. And let's get rid of that there. Let's get rid of that there. And let's get rid of that there. Is that better? Does that look better without... Yeah, look at that. Hi, Kareem. Hi, Running. Thank you guys for popping in tonight. Really appreciate it. It's always cool. I think that there's no more blur there. Look at that. I could fix that on the go. Wow. Amazing. Right, let's get the notes up. I'm going to quickly run through the things that I'll have to run through just for my own personal integrity, so the context is there for me making my points, and that is to do with the historic verdict last week again. I do have to talk about this. I know that if you might have heard this several times, but I think it's important to reiterate this for new people that come in and so they can understand why I talk about Scottish independence so passionately, especially since the verdict from the Supreme Court. So the Scottish Government asked the Supreme Court to rule if Scotland could legislate for a purely advisory referendum on independence. The verdict that they returned was a direct interpretation of the Scotland Act 1998, with a few colourful caveats that to some came across a little undemocratic and patronising. the verdict has not delivered the end to the independent story in the way many believed it had or would. In fact, the verdict has clearly shown with its ruling that there is no legal method for Scotland to follow to be able to ask the question, should Scotland be an independent nation? Well, there is one, but it actually means asking permission to do so from another member of this union. What this verdict did demonstrate now on legal papers and legal ruling is that it is clearly not a union of equals or even a voluntary union. The UK government lawyers did not want this ruling at all, so much so that they petitioned the Supreme Court to throw it out. They didn't want the case to be heard. They knew if the Supreme Court ruled in favour of Scotland, it would set a precedent to the other devolved nations to be able to hold referendums as they please on a constitutional issue. And if they ruled to uphold the Scotland Act 1998, then it would lift the veil of obfuscation and lies of the union being that one of equality and that of being voluntary. So from now on, every time you hear equality or voluntary used to describe Scotland's place in this union, you should question it on the back of that verdict alone. And you should understand that every penny that is sent south to the Treasury that is generated within Scotland, is now, in my opinion, imperial piracy. And finally, to all those who feel that toxic comments are appropriate, an appropriate way to engage with your Scottish brothers and sisters regarding the verdict, your comments actually show more about you than they do about us.
The Saltire is also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok. You will find the links to follow us on all of them at www.thesaltire.scot/media.
And there we go. Listen, thank you for coming in, guys. I really appreciate it. We've got 6 people watching tonight. Do you know what? If one person was watching, I'd still do this. I like talking about this stuff. I think it's important. And the way that I see it is, somebody said to me, somebody at work actually says, why do you do these lives, Mo? Tell me why. It says, you're not reaching out to unionists that are stuck in their ways. And I'm like, yeah, I totally am. And that's not who my audience is. My audience is people that actually believe in independence. It's really, really important that I can reach these people, because if I can deliver the same message, but maybe from a different sort of angle, maybe they can reach people, the people that they rub shoulders with every day. The same, I speak to people pretty much every day at work about independence. I speak to people in the street or in shops when I'm away shopping. People want to engage with this topic, especially if you start with the opener about the cost of living crisis. So when people do engage and start inevitably talking about, I think we could do it better on our own. And, I throw in the question, well, how do you feel about the verdict? And they're like, oh, totally undemocratic, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, morally it's undemocratic. Legally, it's technically not. And that's kind of what, is wrong with it. It's like there is no legal recourse for Scotland to take a direction to ask, even just to ask the question, not even to go full hog and become independent. It's just about asking the question. So tonight, I am talking about the Anglo-British nationalists and the parties, the Liberal-Tory-CRATS is what I call them. That is Labour, that is the Tories, and also the Liberal Democrats, all rolled into one. And I've got a nice little badge, a little emblem that I've used. I'll stick it on TikTok and Instagram if anybody wants to go and see it. I don't have it available to bring up here just now, but it's like overlapping circles of the party colours, And it's funny because the colour right in the middle looks like a really shitty brown colour, which kind of sums up exactly their whole attitude towards Scotland. So let's briefly talk about the three instances in modern history where these parties have come together in one manner or form to work together, even though they like to shout at each other across the dividing part of the Commons, across the dispatch box, about it all. Why is that on my iPad? That's not what I want. You need to be off and away. It's that one that should be live. There we go. For some reason I was coming up something different on my iPad. Weird. Much weirdness. Is it that one? I don't know. Can you guys see me okay? I'm getting chat and things, which I suppose that's half the battle. There we go. No, it was something weird just happened on my iPad there. Maybe I'm going to get shut down here now. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, so in modern history, I think the biggest upheaval of any coalition that kind of shocked the nation was the Tories and the Lib Dems way back pre-independence referendum. I think it was at 2009 or something? I can't remember. It doesn't really matter, but they got together because the Tories could form a minority government, but they really need to have a majority to be able to do it. Thank you, John. I appreciate you saying that. Making sure I'm okay. But the show will go on. Don't worry, the show will go on. I mean, there were mortal enemies one day and then they were buddying up the next day. The whole aspect of them coming together was quite a positive thing for the Commons because it actually showed how parties could work together. The Liberal Democrats kind of held the balance of power and got a lot of policies through that were quite progressive. So I've been told, don't ask me. But I found it a little bit hypocritical as well, where like I say, one day they were all like mortal enemies, but now they're working together. I suppose that's democracy in its essence, though. You have to kind of work together. But you also have to remember that it was this coalition that kind of led into our independence referendum back in 2014. And it also led into, let's see just now, I'll show you just now. Where are we? I need to bring up this screen so I can put, no, it's not that picture, it's this picture. Do you remember this? Do you remember this picture? This is the vow. The people of Scotland want to know that all three main parties will deliver change for Scotland. We are agreed that the Scottish Parliament is permanent and extensive new power. It's permanent and extensive new powers for the Parliament will be delivered by the process and to the timetable agreed, announced by our three parties, starting on the 19th of September, which was the day after the referendum. And it is our hope that the people of Scotland will be engaged directly as each party works to improve the way we are governed in the UK in the years ahead. We agree that the UK exists to ensure opportunity and security for all by sharing our resources equitably across 4 nations. I don't see that happening at all. To secure the defence, prosperity and welfare of every citizen. Say that to people that are freezing their butts off this winter. And because of the continuation of the Barnett allocation for resources and the powers of the Scottish Parliament to raise revenue, we can state categorically that the final say on how much is spent on the NHS will be a matter for the Scottish Parliament. That's still true, but we'll come on to that Barnett issue in a minute. We believe that the arguments are so powerful, will powerfully make the case for staying together in the UK, should underpin our future as a country. We will honour these principles and values, not only before the referendum, but after. People want to see change, A no vote will deliver faster, safer, better change than separation. Really? Do you remember that? Do you remember the vow? It was mental. Absolutely mental. Right, let's have a quick look in the chat now. Kareem, what strategies can we adopt to combat the delusion of no folk? We must be consistent. Will people here fall for Labour's lies again? I hope they don't. We're going to come on to a little bit more of Labour's issues there. I think that a lot of people during the 2014 campaign were a bit scared to vote yes. I think that there was people that firmly believed in the union. You used the word delusional, Kareem. Maybe that can be a wee bit strong, like Scott says. We have to remember that we're all allowed to make a choice. Sometimes I find it difficult to understand as well why people can't see the benefits of independence, but you have to remember the people on the other side ask the same thing of us. Why can't we see the benefits of the union? So it kind of goes both ways here for that. So we have to always remember that, and we have to convince people with a more positive argument for independence. A friend of mine at work called Robert, and I'll play his jingle in a minute or two. He is a no voter turned yes, and he clearly gets all sorts of things being said to him by his unionist friends, and one of them tonight, he got a message and he sent it to me, and it was basically the premise of the message was it's up to us to convince that unionist friend, just that unionist friend of his, that yes is the best way. And my argument is no, well, it's not actually. I don't need to convince you. I need to convince the undecided. You're a firm no voter. I'm not going to waste my energy discussing it with you simply because it's not who I need to convince. The no voters would be convinced after a democratic change, after a constitutional change, when they could see the benefits. I mean, it's not like a magic wand will be waved and everything will be fixed straight away. It would take time, like any country would. And there's certain things that, we can talk about that might crop up that would, maybe help mosey that whole decision-making process for the undecided and the soft no voters to maybe move across to yes. But the vow certainly wasn't one of them. And the whole campaign of Better Together wasn't great either, with the whole aspect. Well, I think the best way is there's a great video on YouTube called London's Calling, BBC Bias during the 2014 referendum. And we're going to have a Discord event for people that are members of the Discord group to watch it all together. And we're going to try and do that before Christmas. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. And if you've not watched it, it's definitely worth watching it. It's really good to watch it as a group because we can discuss it all afterwards as well in Discord. And that'll be our first sort of unique sort of gathering, get together within Discord as an independence sort of like club, group, family, whatever you want to call it. A bunch of indie folk getting together for a social, Anyway, moving on. The picture that I sneaked on, let me go back to that bit there just now. I will have a read of that, Scott. I think I've read it. I've just not had a chance to go back to it. Let me just bring this back up. I need to go to this one. Sorry. Right. So check out this. This is a very, very bad image of it all, but look who is there. That chappie to the left. Is that Anas Sarwar? I think it is. This was taken during the Better Together campaign. Selfies galore. And he was most definitely part of the Better Together campaign. Laughing at you, Scott. Thank you. And during the Better Together campaign, I don't know what Anas Sarwar actually did, but it's interesting to see him alongside one of the principals of the campaign. But he's now the Labour leader, Okay, now I made during the most recent elections in Scotland, the local elections, I made 2 videos because I kind of watched quite closely what the people were actually doing, the different parties. So these 2 videos are from my YouTube channel, but I'm going to play them just now. I'll play one. They're about 5 minutes long each, and it's me discussing Anna Sarwar, I think, before the elections, and then we'll have a wee chat about them, and then we will play the second one, which was kind of me discussing things after the local elections. So just hold back and we will play these just now.
Good evening, Scotland.
Please bear in
Good
mind
evening,
that these
social
were
media land. I hope
months ago.
you are well. It is Tuesday, the 17th of May, 2022. I say to those people directly, Boris Johnson has let you down. Boris Johnson has let the United Kingdom down. Boris Johnson is a corrupt joke and a liar. You don't need to hold your nose and vote Tory anymore. Come home and vote Scottish Labour. These were the words spoken by the Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar, leading up to the local elections earlier this month. The Scottish Labour leader has made it perfectly clear that he does not want his party councillors to be in administration with rivals, even if the likelihood is that Labour could give up influence in local authorities. Speaking to journalists after his speech, Mr Sarwar reinforced his opposition to Labour councillors forming coalitions with Tory and SNP groups. What intense integrity this man had to deliver such pertinent and honourable promises. Let me remind you, political promises made during a campaign are supposed to be sacred. They are your bond to the electorate. They are the currency of credibility to ensure your trustworthiness to those that voted for you. However, a leaked document dated May the 5th reported in the Daily Record stated, Scottish Labour's General Secretary James Kelly said there would be flexibility around local agreements post-election. The leaked memo went on to say Labour groups could not enter into arrangements without the specific approval of the party's Scottish Executive Committee, and that the SEC subcommittee would consider every post-election arrangement request. Does this mean the Scottish Labour Party, the party that wants to fight against the conservative cost of living crisis at both local and national levels, are prepared to fight against them, joining forces with them? Surely not. Anas Sarwar's word is his bond. This is his political currency on the line, his credibility. He would never be a duplicitous Labour leader in Scotland. Surely. An insider has also told the Daily Record that Anas Sarwar's rhetoric for no coalitions with anyone was more like no coalitions with the SNP. Now, consider the SNP Labour coalition that has served Stirling well for years. It will now be a Labour Conservative coalition. This deal has been done with absolute approval from Labour's SEC if we are to believe the leaked memo to the Daily Record. The anti-Tory, anti-poverty, anti-Scotland Labour Party stabs the people of Stirling in the back and immediately jumps into bed with the party that is striking down our ability to feed our children. This is disgusting. How can Anas Sarwar actually look at himself in the mirror? He should be ashamed of himself as a Labour leader to even consider such a thing. After everything the Conservative Party has done, he thinks that a coalition at local level with the f***ing Tories is the right thing to do. It gets worse. In North Lanarkshire, Labour are trying to swing a backroom deal collecting the independent councillors, the Greens and the British Unionists together. This would give them equal standing with the SNP at 36 seats each. All they have to do then is buy off the Tories with a provost post, like in Stirling, to secure North Lanarkshire.
let me remind you that this would have to be approved by Labour's Executive Committee. Let's be clear on this, Scotland. Labour are completely hypocritical in all their promises during the campaign. Anas Sarwar's word is worth nothing. This is the red Tory at work. Just as Tory as the Tories, just as good at spinning lies and just as quick to betray the Scottish people. This is not a game, Mr. Sarwar. This is life or death with the cost of living crisis, and you have chosen to be on the wrong side of that equation. No matter how you justify this with your own personal spin of local politics is different from national politics, we can see through your selfish unionist agenda. Scotland will not forgive you, Mr. Sarwar, as it is not forgiven your predecessors. Take note that this will be your own undoing. Scotland deserves better than Labour's constant betrayals. It deserves the freedom to make its own decision as a normal, independent nation. Your sleazy deals with the enemy of the common working man just increases those that look favourably upon independence and will mark their X in the box that says yes. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good luck. I need to play music more often there, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, so the whole thing there was that Anas Sarwar said, you know what, we're not going to be doing any forms of deals with the Tories, but they were doing backroom deals with the Tories. Great points from Scott there. Do I have a concern relating to losing votes if a Labour resurgence continues around the UK? A lot of Scotland was traditionally Labour until not that long ago. Yeah, it was over a decade ago that the last Labour government was in up here in Scotland, almost a decade and a half ago. I think that they kind of shoot themselves in the foot up here, Scott, when they say that they're not going to be getting in bed with the Tories, and they clearly do. What else? It should be taken seriously, what I said from a Scottish point of view, and it shouldn't be put to the side, but you don't see them courting for the votes up here the same way as they are down south. They could win the election with the votes down south. I mean, the last poll, when they showed like a massive Labour resurgence, there was like maybe 1 or 2 seats up here, but there was like no Conservative seats and maybe 1 or 2 Liberal Democrat seats. And the seats that Labour took were marginal SNP ones in that poll. But they also didn't, the SNP also took the majority of the Tory seats. So I'm not going to be complacent about this. It would be politically stupid to be complacent about not taking Labour seriously. But I don't see them as a big threat in the way that some people have perceived them to be. I think that right now, okay, people might look at Labour and go, maybe it's worthwhile, but how can we trust them? You know, that's the thing. I mean, I do carry SNP's card, but I'm not a zealot. I don't believe in them. If Labour could offer independence, I would probably go with them if that was the case, if they were going down that line. But they're a party of the union, so it's going to be difficult. Yeah, I agree with John Scott. I think a lot of people have lost trust in Labour, yeah. Yeah, they have let Scotland down with everything like that. I do agree. But the next video as well actually has the voice of Anas Sarwar talking about this as well with it all. Let me just get my notes up because I wrote something down. I kind of find Anas Sarwar as a bit of a hypocrite. I don't like him in that sense. I think he's very articulate. I think that he asks much better questions than the Tory leader up here in Parliament. I don't find him as offensive as Douglas Ross in the slightest. But I still find it very difficult to trust a man that says what he says, what he said. I'll play the second video, alright? We'll play the second video just now and we can you'll understand my way of doing it. Yeah, Thank you, Cheryl. I agree completely. The SNP are most definitely the route to independence, but my vote will be up for grabs after independence. I feel strongly enough to actually stand in the list in my region. Whether I would get in, I don't know. But I feel that, let's just say we had a yes vote just now, and tomorrow we wake up and there's a yes majority and we move into the transitional period after Christmas. We move forward, we go through the transitional period, and then we have a general election, say in a couple of years' time after the transition. I feel that the first independent government in Scotland should still have political entities in it, without a doubt. But I also feel that there should be an element of non-partisan, non-political influence people like myself. I'm pro-Indy, but as much as I agree with a lot of policies for the SNP, there's things about Labour that I like. There's actual things about old-fashioned conservatism, that I like, and that's not putting children up chimneys to clean them like Rees-Mogg probably would, right? It's like the benefits towards business, but not at the expense of the worker, all right? A minimal government, but, managing civilization sensibly. But I also believe in quite a lot of socialist values as well. So I'm kind of like hovering around, and I think that both can work hand in hand, to be perfectly honest. Let's have a quick look at the chat before we go. Yeah, I completely agree, Scott. Yeah, do you know what though? I think if I voted Labour for a very long time in Scotland, Scott. In general elections for the UK, I voted SNP at all the local ones because there was more opportunity there, but I didn't like the Conservative Party at all. Right back from when I became politically awake, when I was 12 years old, I knew that I wanted to be independent, and I kind of felt at that time Labour might push forward with Home Rule, more devolution sort of ideas, and a Scottish Parliament, and they did. It was Labour that delivered all that, and I voted for them to get that. And then there was a bit of a sort of a surge for the SNP in Holyrood, and I started to vote for them. I was one of the people that voted for them for their massive chunk that went down years ago. And that was on the back of feeling betrayed by Tony Blair. I'm an ex-serviceman, and I didn't like... I became a serviceman after the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War, but I didn't like the whole idea of going to war in the Gulf. I don't like imperialistic war, and I didn't feel that going after Saddam Hussein was absolutely necessary. That's just my values. We can have a discussion about that another time. It's not relevant today, other than to demonstrate that I voted for Tony, but then I never voted for Labour again after that. That's where my betrayal came from. And when you hear Anas Sarwar say that he won't go into coalition for anything, but his party chairman in Scotland says, well, maybe at local levels we will do that. It's a bit disappointing. Let's play that video anyway. It's another one of me in a long soliloquy for 5 minutes, but at least you have a little break in the middle of it listening to Anas Sarwar's words. And again, this was made a few months ago, so you have to forgive the old sort of A, the music, and B, the photograph and the graphic at the start. But have a wee listen. Good morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Tuesday, the 24th of May, 2022. Please listen to this very carefully.
I was clear before the election, no ifs, no buts, no coalition with the SNP and the Tories. I made it very clear that we would seek to elect as many Labour councillors as possible. I made it very clear that we would seek to form Labour minority administrations, and that we would seek on individual issues to work with other individual councillors and indeed other individual political parties on issues of agreement over the course of the next 5 years. There is not a single coalition with the SNP or the Tories in any part of Scotland. That's exactly what we said before the election. It's consistent with what we said after the election, and I think people can see that for themselves.
You have to admire Anas Sarwar leader of Scottish Labour, stating that he has not made any coalitions, not one. However, in his own words, he's made it clear that he would actually seek on individual issues to work with individual councillors and indeed other individual political parties. Let's just hear that again from Annis, shall we?
I made it very clear that we would seek to form Labour minority administrations and that we would seek on individual issues to work with other individual councillors and indeed other individual political parties.
Anis Sarwar is saying that he is not arguing semantics and he was perfectly clear with his intentions. Are you suggesting that the Scottish electorate is stupid, Mr. Sarwar? Are you suggesting that we should plainly accept this play on words you are choosing to use in this media style of Boris and his conservative cabal of criminals in Westminster? Because that's what you truly sound like. No ifs, no buts, no coalitions. I'm just going to mention the results in Fife right now. SNP, 34 councillors. Labour, 20 councillors. Lib Dems, 13 councillors. Tories, 8 councillors. Knowing the results, you can clearly understand that the SNP won the popular vote. However, Labour, Lib Dems and the Tories all working together can form a council with the Labour Party being in the minority leadership role. But there is no formal agreement, Mr. Sarwar, no formal agreement of coalition, I believe. You're just working with individual councillors and individual political parties on individual issues, just like you've said. You know this is absolute nonsense. Let's just understand how a minority council is formed, shall we? To form any council, including a minority council, negotiations take place to ensure the future working council has a majority of councillors working together towards common goals. These negotiations may or may not become public record and could be done via back channels and done informally, say. However, what will without a doubt become public record is the formal motion within the council chambers to formalise the creation of the council. So if there is a formal motion to create a minority Labour council with the backing of the Lib Dems and the Tories, your argument is completely blown out of the water, Mr. Sarwar, because you are formally in agreement and on the record to work with the Tories. Deny it all you want, Anis. You have betrayed all those Labour voters that voted for you in good faith. I am sure all your gains in this election give you the impression of success up here in Scotland that Labour is on the rise again. Very doubtful. I bet your voters are truly looking on at you with utter contempt, simply because I'm pretty sure they hate the Tories more than they hate the SNP. And remember, the SNP made gains too, and we're not allying ourselves with parties that starve children, and we have won pretty much every election since 2014. That should tell you something, and that it's clear the people of Scotland want change. Labour, Lib Dems, and especially the Tories cannot provide this, so by working in coalition on the record in a council motion, you have made your bed with blue sheets, Mr. Sarwar. I actually truly look forward to seeing you working in politics in an independent Scotland very soon, Anis. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good luck. Okie dokie. Oh, wait, let me turn my volume down in my part here. See what was said in the chit chat there. Yeah, you know what, Labour and Tory are kind of red and blue, kind of a purpley colour in my opinion. If you throw in the Liberal Demoracts too, they become a shitty brown colour, Kareem. It's crazy. Right, so how many councils are in coalition? Well, I use the word coalition loosely, in agreement to work together with regards to Labour and Conservatives working together. Quite a few actually. And you know something? It's not illegal to do that, okay? Please understand, it's perfectly within the rules of local government to do such things. But I found the most surprising one, okay, was the Edinburgh Council, because Labour were traditionally in coalition with the SNP in the capital. So let me read what it says from what I've pulled from articles. Labour have turned on their former coalition partners in the capital by blocking the SNP from forming an administration. Labour, led by Cammy Day, have refused to work with the largest party on Edinburgh Council, have instead worked with Lib Dem and Tory councillors to form a minority administration. It's perfectly legitimate, okay? But at this time, you have to remember what was going on in Westminster. It was all about the cost of living and are we going to survive through winter. It was all about the Boris scandals, and he was getting pulled down as well at that particular time. It was pretty awful. The next one is Fife Council, as mentioned in the video. The SNP Labour power sharing agreement, in place since 2017, was ruled out in Fife thanks to Scottish Labour leaders Anna Sarwar's no former coalition line. The SNP were the largest group again, just 4 seats short of an overall majority. However, Labour managed to woo the Tories and the Lib Dem councillors and install themselves in a minority administration again, despite winning just 20 seats in the party's worst ever result in their former stronghold. Again, not illegal to do that. So then you have the Moray Council. Tories became the largest group on the Moray Council after gaining 3 seats, but they fell short of a majority. The SNP fancied their chances of continuing to rule as a minority. Negotiations went down to the wire, saw both parties attempt to woo Labour's group 3 councillors without success. A crunch vote held at the first full council meeting went the Tories' way after a raft of abstentions. So that basically meant that more than likely the Labour Party and other parties didn't vote, said no, we're not going to vote on that, which means that the largest party, the Tories, had more votes than the SNP, and that's how they came to be. In South Ayrshire, the Conservatives managed to remain the largest party in there, but faced another term in opposition if the SNP, who had 9 seats and Labour had 5 seats, struck a new coalition deal. However, the Tories swept to power at the first full council meeting thanks to, again, Labour abstentions. So these particular ones, when they abstained from voting, allowed the Conservative Party to form the council. So they weren't actually voting with them, but it's like just by inaction, they kind of sided with them. It's the way to look at it. Legally, it's not siding with them, but morally, you can see right through that rhetoric so easily, so very, very easily. Remarkably, control of Stirling Council looks set to go to the third largest party. Labour won 6 seats to the SNP's 8 and the Tories 7, but have struck a deal again with Conservatives to claim power. The smaller grouping offered both SNP and Tories the promised chain in return for their backing. The SNP declined, hoping to form their own administration as the largest group, but the Tories accepted Labour's deal. Accusations of a grubby deal flew as the SNP Labour coalition, which had held council to an end. Right. And then our last one is West Lothian Council. So before the elections, a Labour minority administration ran West Lothian, while propped up by Tory votes. However, the Tories just won 4 seats down, losing 3 seats, meaning that their arrangement could no longer command a majority. Labour, who won 12 seats, managed to secure a loose coalition of support from the Tories and a single Lib Dem and Independent to form another administration. The SNP were the biggest party again there, with 15 seats. Now, is this down to a lack of negotiation things? Oh, look at that, my Nightbot is working. Yes. Excellent. Who is... Wow, look at that. I'm getting spammed by something else. You gotta love that. That is my Autobot there. I'm gonna change its name. Instead of Nightbot, it's a actual proper bot that works in the background. Okay, I'd love to call him Autobot, Optimus Prime. Thank you, Nightbot. Yeah, the bots are working. Don't say nippy. All right. Please, you might get banned. Optimus Prime will get you. So looking at all that, was it illegal what the Tories and Labour did? Absolutely not. Okay, it's called politicking or politicking. I can't get my head around the word. It's like dead late at night. But it was what they did. It's negotiations and wrangling, and you can't turn around and say that they didn't do their job. If I think there was more let's hate the SNP than there was hate the Tories when this was going on. I think there was more rhetoric from Sir Keir Starmer with how this should go rather than Anna Sarwar. But it's kind of embarrassing when Anna Sarwar says no ifs, no buts, real politics maybe. Yeah, I think that's right, Scott. I think that the more the rhetoric came from down south than up here. I think Scottish Labour in local elections and local councils were always been quite happy to work with the SNP, but because they're kind of moving forward and there's a bit of a surge towards more independence, we're kind of, let's not work with them, let's force them out and show that the union can fund the councils directly. Incidentally, when people say that, when they turn and say, yeah, we're going to make money available to the councils and bypass Holyrood. Yeah, let them. Take the money. Any council, take the money. It's our money anyway. We've sent enough taxes down there. Take it. You deserve it. Doesn't matter who it comes from. As long as it's not from criminals. Wait, now Westminster. Are they criminals? Maybe we should discuss that another night. Anyway, the point I'm making there is that I'm all for local councils working directly with Westminster if they're going to get funding. Absolutely. It's not like it's English taxpayers' money. It's Scottish taxpayers' money coming via a different route. And if it means more money, as long as it doesn't come off the Scottish Government's budget via Barnett consequentials, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But that's it. You look at the bigger picture here. All right, and the LABOURAL-TORY-CRATS, these three parties, they're quite happy to work together to subvert, a popular direction that we're going in just now. I'm all for people like Scott who believes in the union having a grown-up, mature discussion, and you're always welcome here, Scott. And if anybody gives you any shit, just PM me and tell me and take screen captures, please, if it's anything to do with any of my lives or anything. Take screen captures. That goes for anybody as well in any of my lives. If anybody gets abused by somebody else or there's something going on that's when I say abuse, I'm talking about direct personal attacks. Okay, I'm not talking about a grown-up discussion, all right? But I won't tolerate it. I don't tolerate toxic unionist discussions at all. What happened there? My whole screen just flashed. Whoa. Are we still on? I think we are. It's weird. I'm going to wait till that happens on I'm looking at it a minute in background. Yeah, so I don't like kind of the whole negative aspect of the discussion. I don't like aggressive, toxic comments directed at individuals on either side. I think we have to be grown up. During the 2014 thing, I was active 9 hours a day online in different social media groups, speaking to people, thousands of people I spoke to. I did so much work online. I got an invitation to the Count Party at Dynamic Earth, where all the bigwigs were. They knew my handle at the time for dealing and looking after things and dealing with it, but it was a very positive argument and positive discussion I did. I don't like independence people that cram it down people's throats. It's like a religion. You've got no business preaching a faith to me if I don't want to hear it. So if you're open to discussions, I'll always talk to people about it, but I'll always listen to your point of view as well. I think it's very important to do that. Very important. Let's have a quick look at the comments here just now. I think government should be making more of technology. Could almost be calling a referendum type thing for a lot of points. Yeah, there's a lot of arguments to use technology to put democratic decisions for acts and laws and local decisions and things in the hands of the people. I think that it's a very, I think it's a good idea probably, but I don't think that a lot of people would be ready for that. I think maybe my son's generation. I quite like putting a cross in a box still for that. But there is room for that. There is definitely room for that. Else, love a modern government, Indy or not, to embrace the technology. We've got in Holyrood, they've got a much better voting system than they have in Westminster. Westminster still have those division rooms in the corridors you walk through with somebody counting and everything. Whereas you can sit on your butt in Holyrood like most modern parliaments and push a button. I think that they should be... I like the idea of more public input, but at the same time, maybe I'm afraid of it a little bit more, Scott. I don't know. Yeah, toxic chat and or abuse will change nobody's views. I don't like it. I think that whatever the outcome, like see in 2014 when we lost, I accepted the result wholeheartedly. I hated the result. Okay, and my face was rubbed in shit for months by unionist friends of mine. Would I have done that to them? I'll never know. I don't think it's in my personality to do that sort of thing. I think that I would have probably said, look, we're on this journey together now. Let's move on and make this work. Whereas, ha ha ha, you nats are shite and, you just have to dry your eyes and fucking get on with it. Excuse my language, but that's the sort of things that I was getting for months. So I disengaged with politics until the Brexit campaign started. And when the Brexit campaign started, I was like, yeah, well, I'm a Remainer. Completely. I don't think anybody's going to vote to leave the EU. It's a big scary block, but it's very positive for trade. So I voted. I went to bed that night after watching a bit of the result programs, and we were ahead. And I woke up the next morning and the world had changed. It was like, what happened? I went into work and there was people that voted to leave right there and then that day. Okay, the day after the result came in for Brexit, that they instantly says, why did I vote to leave? This is scary. They were doing it as a protest vote. That's in Scotland. Still wasn't enough because the majority in Scotland did that. Incidentally, this discussion with somebody at work about the Brexit vote, saying, well, you know what, it was a vote by Great Britain. Says, what, we're not a country? Scotland not a country? Do we not have a say in what we do? Well, no, because it was a British decision. Yeah, okay, I can accept it was a British decision, but do you not think maybe then, to be that union of equals that we've always been told we are, that maybe the four nations, the home nations, we call them the home nations, let's call them the home nations, should have been more involved with discussions during Brexit negotiations? Just wondering. A bit crazy. Right, a great chat tonight from everybody. Scott, your views are really, really, really good. My view is that there is a demonstrable mandate for another referendum. I'm not sure about a de facto plan, though. I don't like the word de facto. Plebiscite is what I think is the word that they should be using, because plebiscite is an actual thing. It's recognised globally. It is basically an electorate using a ballot box event to demonstrate their views on constitutional change. That's the easiest way to describe it. What other routes do we have? Do you think that there'll be any international pressure on Westminster to give a Section 30 to give permission? I don't know. Do you think that that would ever happen. Maybe they will. Maybe the reputation of not allowing a democratically elected entity in one of the home nations who stood on a mandate for asking the question, about independence. I mean, that's what happened in 2011. Yeah, do you know what? The SNP then got a majority standing on their own. But see, if you add on the Green seats from 2011, it's the same amount of seats that the SNP and the Greens have got just now. So it's kind of the same. In fact, it is pretty much the same, except one party just didn't get it, the overall majority. So what's different between now and then? Well, Alistair Jack seems to think that, it was like it was the consensus across civic society that we were going to do this. Well, why not now? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you why not now. It's because this is where I become a bit extreme. It's because we're kind of bled financially from it all. Here's a federal case for it all. Okay, I think I might have said this before. I'm not against a federal UK, but we need to be independent first. We need to be in control of every fiscal lever. So does Wales, and so does Northern Ireland. So does maybe the Republic of Ireland. Let's just include them in the thing, right? But all the home nations need to be autonomous to be able to negotiate a federal policy that suits the needs across everybody. It couldn't be dictated from Westminster Parliament, because if they did that, it would be an Anglo-British nationalist federal policy. There's no two bones in my body about it. For proper federalism within the UK, where we're pooling for defence, maybe resources, I don't know. Why can't we have a collective, energy policy instead of a one that's based around the way that it is just now? There's so many pros for federalism, but only if we're independent first. It wouldn't work any other way for me at all. I would never vote for federalism without being independent first. That's kind of how I feel about it. International court, yeah, going along those lines, it could go that way. There's a thing called Salvo that's out there just now that I'm reading. I got directed there to go and read some stuff. It seems very interesting. I don't know whether it'll make a difference or not, but for the sake of 100,000 signatures, which I believe that we should be able to raise quite quickly within the independence movement, it takes the case of Scottish independence to the United Nations, which I believe is another great way for putting our case forward on the world stage. International court as a whole, I don't know. I've not gone that far with my thoughts about it, Scott. I think that certainly from my point of view, I think the United Nations is a great place to be able to make our case and say, hey, look, we stood on a political mandate, and we believe that we have the right to do this. We think that democracy is being perverted here. There is room for negotiations with regards to this, and the particular model of the United Kingdom that we're in just now is one where our natural resources are being, I don't want to use the word plundered, because I think that's wrong. I think that our natural resources are being taken from us by a government that we don't have the adequate representation within for our needs now. As percent of population, yes, of course we have representation in the same way as a constituency does in England. But Westminster is most definitely an Anglo-British nationalist Parliament. We can't deny that. We can't deny that. But I do agree with Cheryl as well. We need to take our campaign international. And I've got people, friends of mine, within the movement just now that are compiling mailing lists to do an email campaign for anybody that's interested. It probably won't be ready till January, because I need to get somebody that's a very creative writer to write a short, pungent email. It'll probably be perceived as spam, but you know what? At least it's there. Even as someone's currently pro-union after the court ruling, the UK government needs to clarify all the home nations as to what route to referendums would be, similar to what Northern Ireland has, for example. Yeah, you know what, Scott? That is such a sensible point. And they have made it clear to Scotland what that is, and that is, no, there's the Section 30 route, but now is not the time. Why did they, why is it that Westminster can turn around and say quite happily to an entire population, you can't do this just now, and we say when you can? That is the essence of it. That is what is wrong. And what you say, Scott, is absolutely right. Okay, so why don't we have, Northern Ireland have got the Good Friday Agreement. Why can't we have the Christmas Day Agreement, where basically if there's a need within the Scottish Parliament, if there's a vote within the Scottish Parliament every 7 years, the same as Northern Ireland, make it a legal precedent that we can hold a referendum for independence. It's exactly the same as a referendum for unification. What is the actual difference there? Why do you think Ireland were allowed to do that? 2 reasons. One, the Troubles, where they wanted to have the potential of bringing people together. And 2, they don't have the same economic potential as Scotland does. Northern Ireland, I mean, not the Republic, because clearly the Republic of Ireland is outgunning GDP for compared to the UK. Saying that as well, Northern Ireland are doing pretty well, still being able to trade freely with the EU. That Brexit thing's really working well, isn't it? For Northern Ireland it is. Okay, listen. I'm 10 minutes past my time. Let me just read the last little bits. It is when they come away with that kind of nonsense. I'll sway more people against Westminster. I'm staggered that they can't see that. Coming for somebody that believes in the union, Scott, that means a crap load to me. It really does a hell of a lot to me. When I say crap load, I don't mean it's crap. I mean it's like a crap load of positiveness. Okay? I think that is my problem as well, even from an independence point of view. If I take my Indy hat off and look from an outsider's point of view in, I'm like, what? Supreme Court did their job. Okay, they did the right thing. That is the only verdict they could have come up with. It's they interpret law, not political mandates. You know that. That's how it works. So they did their job. That's why it was unanimous. And Westminster lawyers didn't want that result, and they didn't want the result being positive either. But that grey area that they could easily say, no, it's a union of equals, it's a voluntary union, and now is not the time to, no, you'll get one, but not just yet. No, not just now. No. The question we should always be asking is, why not now? Just because. We've just had a pandemic. We need to work together. Where's the working together? Where's the working together? Okay? Alright? There's your budget, Scotland. We're making cuts, so by the Barnett formula, this is me getting onto the Barnett formula now, because of Barnett consequentials, if we're making cuts in England, you get cuts too. You know? Anybody that says that Scotland is squandering money, the Scottish government is squandering money, is nonsense. Okay, we have to legally balance our books. It's written into the Scotland Act 1998. We have to balance the books, without a doubt, by law. And we do it. And sometimes we spend less. And sometimes the Labour governments used to hand that money back to Westminster. We don't. We hold on to it and we keep it for the following year. We're not going to hand that back. There's nothing legal about handing it back. Nothing illegal either. However, let's say, for instance, to keep it as simple as possible, if you take the money for the NHS as a percent of population, okay, and they reduce the money per head by X percent or by X 0.0%, and that means there's a few billion less going to the NHS in England, the same percentage drops per head of population in Scotland as a result of that. So where we budgeted for X amount 6 months ago, we now have Y amount and we have to juggle our money around. That's how the Barnett formula works in its basic format for you to understand. It's probably a lot more complicated than that. I am no economist, all right, but as far as I'm concerned, if we send, say, 80, 90 billion down to Westminster, we get 45, 50 billion back or more, okay, sometimes. If that money comes back, that is our budget that we've got to spend things in. The rest of it is spent on our behalf for certain social services, for pensions, armed forces, stuff like that. But when you add it all up, it still doesn't cover everything. It still covers more than what we do. They like to say that it is, but we actually make enough national insurance contributions in Scotland to pay for all our pensions just now. That's just matter of fact. So what's going on? Do you think that if Scotland had its full fiscal levers, do you think that we would survive? I think we've got a great economic case. I really do. I think that having the ability to borrow and invest in a different way that Westminster does, I think that we would thrive. I think that we have the potential of being an industrial powerhouse with our own immigration policy to encourage workers to come across and work in modern automated factories. I think we've got enough water to run those factories, enough green energy to, when the products are actually made, to have a very minimal carbon footprint. You know, thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. You've never questioned Scotland's ability to be independent. I wasn't directing this at you, by the way. You're too nice for me to direct things at. I'd love to get you maybe on TikTok for a wee chat sometime. I think it would be really good, really interesting to hear your points of view. We can arrange that. And if anybody gives you shit there, I'll just silence them. Okay. I feel that outside investment would come into Scotland very easily because we've got an educated population. We're not like a new country, We're not a new country, we're an old country, but we're going to be an old country renewed with the potential to make our own decisions in a very positive way. It makes no sense for me to turn round and think that we're allowing the most important decisions at the highest levels being made by people that don't really give a toss about us in the same manner as our own people do. I'm not saying the SNP are perfect, but it's all we've got just now, but I do firmly believe that come independence, that the SNP will eventually break up and we'll have smaller parties, and then it will kind of align over a few decades to be different political entities as a whole. My views have just been whatever the bet. Yeah, I think that's where our views kind of overlap. Our ideals are for what we believe to be the best for Scotland, but we just have different views of how to obtain what's best, Scott. Can anyone see my comments about the British crest? No. I don't know why, John. Why do you always... You're not getting attacked by my bots because my bots would say something public to you. So I wonder why things like that are not coming on. That's weird. Live screen. That's weird. Weird. Right. Brilliant pool of talent in Scotland. We would be able to retain them instead of having the brain drain south. Yeah. So this is the thing as well, right? In an independent Scotland, you've got the large entities like a passport office, a larger tax office, a larger social security system, the equivalent of a DVLC. All these sort of things we would have the Scottish equivalent of that would end up, delivering those jobs needed in Scotland for those things. Then private investment from overseas, our own currency. People always talk about, wow, what about how would we run our own currency? Well, we need to be able to offer something to the world for people to buy our bonds, to have the ability to have something as a reserve currency or a reserve, whatever it is that the reserve banks keep, okay, central banks. I firmly believe that we've got access to enough sterling to hold sterling as a reserve currency to begin with, but I would want to move away from that as quickly as possible, with foreign investment on bonds and things, and be able to hold foreign currency as a reserve. We don't have enough gold yet to have a gold reserve, but who knows, that might come. I'm just reading about what Scott said about another social media thing. Listen, Scotland has great potential. I think that more and more people are beginning to see that. I think that the past two polls that have been demonstrate that people do want change. We're sitting just above 50%. Still not enough for me yet, but we're still sitting just above it. I'm quickly going to go onto my Twitter just now because I want to see how much money that thing has raised. Oh, I've got a couple of messages. If anybody's messaged me on Twitter just now, I will get back to you before I switch my computer off. Right, profile. There was a fundraiser going on for another independence poll. Let me find where it is. There it is. I want to see how much they got. I had about £500. Just under £500. They're now sitting at £522 since this morning, so more's been done. I will pop that link into the chat. That link there, the crowdfunding link, that is for basically, I'll read what it says here. It's a thing called Fetter Together Limited. Scottish media continuously fails to inform us about the popularity of independence. On the rare occasion they commission a poll, there is actually 3 at once, worse than the buses. We want to commission an independence poll on the back of the recent news that Scotland is anti-democratically being denied the ability to hold an independence referendum. That might seem paradoxical, but politically independence still matters, and that should be quantified. You know what? It's I think that it's quite important that we do have that poll. So if you can drop it a £5, that would be great. It'd just be interesting to see that go ahead. And then there was something else I wanted to pop on here that I try to put on every night, but I forgot to have it ready. Let me just quickly do this. Amazing. There is my YouTube account and videos. This is the video for let's just make sure you're not playing. There we go. This is the video for my friend Robert. Okay, this is his no to yes journey. I think that if anybody wants to go watch that, go watch it. It's about 45 minutes long. Have it playing in the background on your phone while you're cooking the dinner, making the breakfast, or driving to work on the bus, whatever. right? It's me having a conversation with my friend Robert, who was very fervently a no voter back in 2014, and it's his journey to what goes. It's entertaining. It's not, you don't see my face, Scott, apart from a photograph, and you see spectralizers for our voices and stuff. But Robert's really articulate, and it's quite interesting to hear his point of view. I gave him a list of questions that I was going to ask him, so there was no ambush journalism. I quite believe in that. You know, you're on night shift tonight. I hate night shifts. And you're watching me while you're on a night shift. We need to have a discussion about what you do sometime. Don't type it in the box just now, Scott, but that's interesting. Okay, it is 12:20. We are now on the 3rd of December. There's only 22 days till Christmas. I hope you are all going to be having a good time on Christmas. I hope who's got an advent calendar? Somebody say, have you got an advent calendar? Actually, do you know something? There's something wrong with this. I need to change my camera angle, because I keep coming down low like this because I'm tired. I need to change that. Oh, wrong way. Like that. That's better. I can still slouch, but now you see my chin properly hiding behind the microphone. There you go. Okay. What's up? No, me. What's happened? Have I missed something? Is it something I asked? Oh, here we go. I see a unicorn. The sign's supposed to be voluntary union. I've always been seen as a ruse of the British crest. There's something about the shackled unicorn. I can't remember what it is. Robert actually knows what it is. He's very into lineages and medieval crests and things. I think it's shackled because it's too wild, I believe. I don't believe that it's supposed to be trapped. Of course, that could be an allegory. It could be trapped as well. All right? I don't know. Listen, something completely random for you, right? I once read somewhere the story about the Scottish lions. Okay, this isn't actually cats or anything. I cannot remember where I read it, but the story goes something in medieval times about when the King of Scotland was killed, or there wasn't a king in Scotland, and some nobles from down south came up and they besieged a castle, and the lord in the castle said, look, just, we don't want to fight you, piss off, we don't want anything to do with you. And the lords from down south were saying, well, surrender the castle then, we don't want to kill you, and kind of that conversation was going backwards and forwards, and the English lord says, you don't have a king, so who do you fight for, who do you stand for? And the lord in the castle said, I stand for the lions. And the lions was to represent the Scottish people. That's what he said. Now, I know this story, but for the love of me, I can't find it anywhere, because I used the lion is awake as a hashtag on one of my TikTok videos. And, people are saying, oh, well, the lion's English. Well, traditionally it is, but in the context I was saying it was like the people are awake in Scotland. But I can't find the friggin' story anywhere. And I know that I've read it somewhere. And if anybody can find it... the advent calendar answer. I need to keep track of my questions. It is late though, isn't it? It's very late. Listen, if anybody can find an answer to that question about the Scottish lions, and I don't think it's anything to do with the flag, the lion rampart or anything, but I'd be most grateful. Just drop me a message on any of my socials. But I've rambled on for much longer than expected tonight. I hope it's been okay for you. I'm going to go though, and I've got a great advent calendar just before I go. See, I'm getting stuck on it again. I got a Thornton's one, bought from my lady wife, bought me a Thornton's one, and I bought her a man moment. What's it? It's one full of French jam anyway, all right, and it's gorgeous, and I can't wait to try some of the jams as well in it, which will be good. Okay, we're going to go. I don't usually do streams at the weekend, but I'm working to try and do one on Sunday, a special one, with little bits of pre-recorded segments about Salvo, which is, well, you can go and look it up yourself. It's salvo.scot. It's all about, like, again, sort of ancient laws and bringing people together and stuff. So there's quite a lot of interesting information there from what I've read so far. But I would strongly recommend having a look at it. And I'm trying to pull together just the main points to make a wee live about it for a Sunday night. If I can get it together by Sunday night, I'll certainly do it. But I've got work in the morning, then I've got my Christmas night out, then I've got a hangover on Sunday morning, and then I'm working back shift on Sunday. But it doesn't mean I can't pull something together. Okay, listen, thank you everybody for hanging out and for listening to me. Hope I didn't bore you too much, but good night, have good dreams, and don't work too hard on your night shift, Scott. Take care, everybody.